Dr. William Mpofu. Dr. Mpofu, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming through.
Afternoon.
Let's start with the media briefing. Surely you were listening into what Nelson Chamisa had to say. What are your impressions thereof?
The briefing gives just but part of the picture of the gravity of the political problem that Zimbabwe has and that which it presents to Africa and the world, which is as late as 2018, the combination of barbaric force and criminal fraud in subverting and blocking the popular will of the people towards democracy. So it's something that should concern the world, that at this late age you have a regime that is capable of combining such levels of force and fraud in preventing the will of the people from coming to fruition.
But what specifically makes you think that indeed the authenticity of the results are questionable, and the originality and the legality of them as well?
Yeah, like there are measures that political parties took and that political activists took and some monitors took, that is to try and achieve and observe the tally between what was being recorded in polling stations and what was eventually announced. If there's no tally in the figures that are tabulated in the voting sites and those figures that are eventually announced, you definitely have a red flag fraud. Something has been manipulated and something has been cooked against the democratic will of the people. And,
but one may be of the view that they're not surprised, of course, by the statement from the MDC Alliance, because they've declared victory even before the elections were conducted.
Yeah, that can be said as a political statement. But look at the other side as well. Who is it that the MDC have for so many years been contesting against? Look at the individuals, their reputations, their track records, starting with Robert Mugabe himself and his assistants that are now in charge. You have individuals that some of them went into the war as child soldiers, grew up into the war, and the war grew up in them, and they have never been mentored, prepared, or educated into running matters of the state. Some of them are people that really need help, and these are the people that are fighting to aim and gain international legitimacy as state leaders and political rulers of a country, which is, all the symptoms are coming through that something is sick, something is mad, and something is wrong in the Zimbabwean body politic as led by the current junta.
Yeah, and of course we've had Nelson Chamisa calling for the international community to help Zimbabwe. He specifically made mention of President Cyril Ramaphosa on his capacity as the SADC chairperson. How far do you think they can go, SADC can go in terms of, re-establishing its capabilities as well? Because there were questions around its capabilities.
Yeah, I think Africa as a region and the world at large should abandon this political politeness and these liberation war solidarities between and amongst ruling liberation movements should come second to the will of the people of Africa. Africa will continue to be the laughingstock of the world and to be a kind of devil's headquarters in the world where the worst things happen.
But the question is Africa able to solve its own problems?
It must be able if Africa wants to survive as a site of human beings in the world. It's not a question of if or not, but Africa must be able to confront evil when the early signs of that evil show. Because if you close out legitimate means of people expressing their will, you are slowly but surely preparing the ground for civil wars, genocides, and other worse political types of violence.
All right. Now, in conclusion, what do you think will happen going forward? Nelson Chamisa announcing that they've sought legal advice on this matter. He didn't want to disclose much as to what and how they will go about doing it. And on the other hand, Emmerson Mnangagwa saying this is the beginning of a new era for Zimbabweans.
At the end of the day, it's not about the heroes, be it Nelson Chamisa or Emmerson Mnangagwa, but the will of the people of Zimbabwe. Political statement, vaunting political claims have nothing durable to offer than the will of the people of Zimbabwe, that are tired of a kind of internal colonialism. And recently we've seen increasing events of the army participating in politics on behalf of persons, parties and factions. And that should tell you that something ghastly is in development and is under construction. And Africa will only have itself to blame if these early signs of evil and trouble are not reacted to accordingly.
All right, and we do know, of course, many people are of the view that the elections will be carried out peacefully, and that, of course, up until Wednesday this week when violence erupted. And it looks like none of the leaders want to take responsibility of what happened. ZANU-PF blaming it on the MDC alliance. On the other hand, the MDC alliance blaming it on ZANU-PF itself for deploying the army.
Denialism and that kind of imperviousness to evidence and to facts has always accompanied fascist and tyrannical regimes, whereby even in the midst of committing genocide, they will want to blame it on the victims of genocide. So Nelson Chamisa doesn't control any army, he doesn't control the police, he doesn't have weapons and bombs and bullets with which to shoot people. The blame is squarely and fairly on the desk of the incumbent president.
All right, and this question again. What is going to happen going forward? Because many analysts were of the view that the elections will actually deliver Zimbabwe to the new heights in terms of the financial crisis that's currently facing the country. Most importantly, the international sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe as well. They were hoping that after the elections, Zimbabwe will start seeing light at the end of the tunnel, but it looks like they've actually taken 10 steps back.
True. And that's what happens when you have got individuals like the current junta that are really not prepared for change and for revolution, that have not been equipped in time or mentored in place for leadership of countries. When you've got the highest levels of hope, thinking that the people are about to be delivered to another stage in their movement forward, that's when the true face of the monster emerges and shows you that it's actually not a revolution but a big reaction into the past and in decades. So,
all right, Dr. Mpofu, due to time constraints, we have to leave it at that, but thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed, Dr. William Mpofu, political analyst, talking to us about the developments from coming out of Harare. Moving along now, Police Minister Bekele says they've appointed a